The biggest thing that I've seen in the industry has been the advent of technology. I think the technology is getting better, but I still think I want to talk to a person that can reason and show empathy and help me fix my problem.
To me, the best experience that I can have with the brand is to have no experience. Meet me where I am. Don't make me walk to the customer service counter. Don't make me wait on the phone. Don't make me wait at the gate. Communicate with me and let's have an interaction.
AI is getting so good at the conversation. And so I'm going to become less and less demanding that I need to talk to a person. To me, that's where AI really is making an impact in contact centers.
Welcome to Speechless, the customer experience podcast that leaves us without words. From the amazing customer experiences that we've seen to those cringe-worthy experiences that we all know. We will look at all of these experiences and understand how people are treated by businesses and how people remember those businesses. We won't be mentioning any brands by name to maybe praise the worthy, but to also protect the guilty. I'm Matthew Storm, and I'm Speechless.
Hi, welcome back to Speechless. Again, I'm Matthew Storm. Thank you for joining us again here on this next episode. I have the honor of welcoming someone to the studio today that I've known for quite some time. I actually looked it up. I think it's 26 years. Wow. I know. And 26 years ago, I was an agent in a call center. I was working for Dell Computer. They asked me to do some technology projects. I started doing quality monitoring and coaching. Then they asked me to do some additional technology projects. And then upon that, I started getting really involved as a customer to provide feedback and features into the software we were using for quality management. And I went to one of their conferences, and at one of those conferences, I met Mr. Bob Furniss. So
yes,
nice
you
to
did.
meet you. Yes. And while we were there, it was great. We were younger then.
Yeah.
And I
was much younger then.
as was I. And I just remember being super impressed. And I'll say it on the front end and I'll say it on the back end as well. It's also a pleasure to sit down with you because I would consider you one of my mentors because at that time, I was looking for is this call center world, something that I could make a career of. Mm-hmm. I was at the time getting my MBA and really sure, working at Dell and taking calls and then doing QM was just a hobby at the time. And then, beyond that, it was your vision of what coaching and, helping employees become the best and, to move us out of this like nasty, apathetic, outsourced world that we were moving into in the early 2000s. Yeah. And so welcome to the show. I really appreciate you. And I give you that intro because I've followed you for 26 years with everything that you've done. And so thank you for joining us today.
Well, that makes me, it's an honor to be here on your podcast, but it's even more of an honor to hear you say that. As we were talking earlier today, 20 years ago, I was 25 years ago, 26, whatever you said, I was pretty green, but I had a lot of passion about the contact center and about what was happening in the contact center.
Sure.
And I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about technology today, but I still believe that the reality comes back to people and relationships. And so and that started way back then, talking about coaching and feedback and how to make that happen.
Sure. Yeah. And, most of the speechless experiences we have that we talk about on the show are usually negative because someone has been just beating in the productivity element of the call center where every second is measured, every moment, how long is your break? How long is this? How long did it take you to do this? Why can't you do this faster? And then you and I coming along and saying, okay, productivity is great, but what was your empathy like? What were you sincere? Were you, not just following a list of to-dos, but of doing it in a way that's really human-like. So I was going to ask you how Have you seen that change in the last 25 years from, here's a list of things I need to do and then get to the next call and type of experiences? And do you think a lot of organizations are still in that mindset?
That's my initial answer to that would be yes. I think a lot of organizations are stuck in that rut, but I'm happy to find more and more folks that get it. I was at ICMI last October, and we interviewed a couple of on our podcast, interviewed a couple of folks that are leaders in contact centers, and they talked the way that I talk, and they talked the way that you talk, and they talked about the need for helping people first and letting the efficiencies take care of themselves. So I think that it's possible that we're passing some imaginary line to become more focused on the customer. But the biggest thing that I've seen in the industry has been the advent of technology. And I think it goes back to IVRs. And the first time we started talking about IVRs, and you dial in and you press 1 to do this and press 2 to do that. So we could have taken that technology and turned it into the customer focused technology. What we did with it in the contact center is made it the company focused technology. And we were trying to figure out how many of our calls can we scrape off and put into the IVR? How many calls can we put over there? And then CRM was the second try at that. And CRM was supposed to be about the customer. But a lot of what we did in the industry was put a bunch of stuff in front of the agent and then attempt to get that agent to be faster at what they were doing because they had better technology. And then we came along, and AI is playing in the same venue, I think. It's so frustrating to me that whenever we talk about AI in the world, we talk about it making our lives better. In the contact centers or in a lot of customer experience scenarios, we talk about it being able to reduce headcount.
Sure.
And I don't know why we always go there in the contact center space.
Yeah. Well, I think most contact centers are still viewed as they're still on the expense side of that balance sheet.
Yeah.
And whenever you are looking at that, the focus that I've seen in the industry in the last, I would say 5 to 10 years is, and I've mentioned before on this show that to me, the best experience that I can have with the brand is to have no experience.
Yeah.
I mean, the best times I have with my utility or my bank or my airline is when I don't have an experience. Forget customer experience. I just don't, I want it to all just work. Right. And if that happens, will there be fewer people, sort of sweeping up the things that happen? Of course. But the experience of that will be so great because, well, my flight got rebooked. I'm already in that. They know what kind of seat that I want. And okay, I'm upset my flight got canceled, but everything was taken care of. It wasn't something that I had to take time in my life and manage it. Like, oh, okay, something's happening. I need to manage the flight cancellation. I need to manage this transaction that is appearing on my bank statement. I have to manage my utility because I haven't had power for 48 hours. Those are experiences that get shifted to the customer to take action, and that I want to see that most of that we see in AI right now is more proactive to just let's have that experience not happen. And I don't know if you've seen more organizations focus on that, or what's your take on how AI is helping organizations be more proactive?
First of all, I had the awesome opportunity when I was working for a company called IXL that was based out of Atlanta to work on a project at Delta Airlines when they stood in a room and talked about the experience that we have today with Delta Airlines, our apps. Like this was before apps were, this is when apps were coming.
Okay.
This is before the concept of an app on your phone doing everything. And they were dreaming about the fact that you're going to check yourself in with the code. And they were dreaming about this new Delta. And I remember walking out of the room with a group of consultants we were with and going, that's not possible. Like that's too hard. That's not possible. But coming back into the room and dreaming about what that looked like, what I will tell you is the experience was the focus. The focus was on the customer. Let's make checking in easier. Let's make finding your flight easier. Everything was about easier. Now, there was also conversations about if we do this, we can do this with less people at the gate. But that wasn't the focus. And I think the companies that are doing speechless or effortless experiences well are the companies that focus on the experience for the customer first, and then let the chips fall where they may with the efficiencies and the reductions in cost.
Sure.
But I'll give you another example. Just this morning, I'm trying to make a reservation for an Uber for in the morning to go to the airport, and the organization I'm going with sent me a voucher to pay for my trip, sure. my trip to the airport.
Sure.
Well, I did everything I was supposed to do, and it showed when I made my reservation that it was going to take it out of my voucher. And then I clicked out and clicked back into the reservation, and it says it's going to charge my American Express. And so I canceled it, did it again, canceled it, did it again. And on the third time I went, well, I'll just call. You cannot call somebody at Uber. I don't know if you know that, but
Sure.
There's no such thing.
Right.
So back to your point about things getting better, I think the technology is getting better, but I still think that we as humans are looking for an out that says, I want to talk to a person with a brain, I want to talk to a person that can reason and show empathy and help me fix my problem. Because the bot, I said the exact same things I would say to a human with the bot this morning. And it eventually said, I don't understand and I cannot help you. Here's some FAQs. Thank you. This conversation is over.
Right. Yeah.
My experience was not what I expected.
Yeah. Why do you think companies like that are so afraid of voice?
I still think it comes down to money. I still think if I can get away with, if I'm Amazon and I'm doing it so well that I don't have to talk to anyone, then I can get away with not talking to anyone. Although there is an 800 number that you can talk to somebody in Amazon. Yeah. But I think Uber thinks that they're good enough to not have to talk to people. So I think companies do that. They get to this point and they just go, we're going to remove that from our costs. We're going to slash out that call center.
Or they think they've covered every scenario that could possibly happen. Like, well, what else? I mean, the app that we've designed, the systems, the workflows, they're so flawless. So I don't know why there would ever be a weird situation where this would happen. And that's what I see. But what I see brands look at is well, maybe there are times either for VIP reasons. Oh, well, I'm an Uber Diamond Titanium something or whatever. And so I have the ability to call and speak with someone.
Right.
But someone who's just using Uber ever often,
Right.
doesn't. Or that there are situations where at the end it can make a proper handoff and say, I've looked through every FAQ, maybe the bot has, or the systems and the AI has tried everything possible. But this just doesn't fall in one of those cases.
And that's what I expected. That's the reason why I went down the rabbit hole, expecting at the end of the rabbit hole was a person.
Sure.
And there wasn't a person at the end of the rabbit hole.
Sure.
But even though technology has, CCAS is another place that we now use it to reduce cost. So, but in the middle of all of that, let me also say that the experience has gotten better in the last 10 years, in the last 20 years. I mean, our point of reference today is so unrealistic compared to 15 years ago. How fast I get information, how fast you push information to me.
Sure.
Delta pushed hey, it's time to check in. Delta pushed the information to me. They didn't need I don't need anyone to talk to.
Yeah.
I can do everything I want to do there. So that's
10 years
what
ago,
Speechless is all about. It's about being seamless, but I still think there needs to be an out somewhere down the rabbit hole.
Sure. I mean, 10 or 15 years ago, the alternative was you traveled as much as I. It's okay. Here's the line at the person at the gate that I could talk with about my canceled flight.
Right.
I know there's a customer service desk that's kind of between D7 and D8, and I can walk there. I can see it, and I can see that there's already lines forming there because of the weather. I've got the 800. I'm on the phone, and it's saying that my average wait time is an hour and 25 minutes. So it's like, okay, I'm going to be in line here at the gate. Look here, where am I going to get the best? And now I think about it just like, someone says, ladies and gentlemen, your flight's been canceled. And I'm like, I know that 3 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it popped up on my app.
Exactly.
I'm going to be on the 4 o'clock now instead of the 1 o'clock. Yeah. And there's so many of those things that I think we take for granted that a lot of those have been resolved. There was an episode of your podcast, The Contact Center Show, by the way. Check it out wherever you get your podcasts.
Do that.
And I think the example you gave was, instead of handing me 2 or 3 instances where one of my employees, if I'm a supervisor, their scores and have my feedback, analyze all of the things that I've done and not just give me a few examples, but give me guidance. I like what you often talk about, the sheet with a line, and just like, here are the things that you're doing really well. Here are the things that we can improve, and let's talk about them. And that kind of coaching goes a long way with employees. And the technology that I've seen is where Gen AI has drawn the line, and it's not just given some examples on both, but then maybe links to examples like, actually, oh, no, I don't know what you mean, boss. I always do that on every call. Well, let's listen to this one. And you're like, oh, well, I don't know why I didn't do that on that call, and having the proof, I think especially when it comes to coaching, is that you have to build the trust. I mean, if your supervisor is, berating you about something you do or don't do, and they don't have the examples behind it, or they don't trust what the quality team is saying, or what some model from Claude has said, then it's going to be just the same as, it's like back in the day whenever you would tell an agent, your average handle time is high. Could you get that lower, please?
Can you get that lower? Absolutely.
What?
Absolutely, I can get it lower. I just hang up on the last 5 people of the day, and my talk time goes down a whole lot compared for anything else.
I can do the math.
Yeah, absolutely. I can do the math. That's my point of why you shouldn't be telling people that.
Absolutely. So when it comes to really great speechless experiences, one of the things we do usually at the end of an episode is talk about examples in real life that have happened. Tell me an example where customer service has left you speechless, either good or bad. I mean, you gave one example with your Uber setup. Any great examples of something that when you heard, you were just, I can't believe that?
So I think for me, the one that I would choose as the positive is the consistency that I get from American Express. I'm a platinum. I used to travel a lot. I'm still a platinum card member. So maybe I'm a little different than the basic card member, but the experience that I get online, the experience that I get if I go to the website, the experience that if I go to the app, if I want to chat with somebody, if I want to talk to somebody, they seem to be seamless. And you probably remember when we first used the word omni-channel, and it was all about we were going to have one channel. And I dare say we're not there yet.
No.
But there are companies that are getting closer to that. So for me, an example is, like you said, for your flight and how things are just happen, is that I get proactive notices from American Express saying, did you make this charge? And it's not on every charge. It's just on the charges that doesn't make sense to them.
Sure.
So they're using AI. They're using something to say, hey, this guy doesn't usually buy $350 worth of farming equipment. That's a little bit unusual. We better make sure that's real.
Sure.
And then that same interaction, I can go online, I can go to my app, I can call, I can respond the way that I want to respond instead of the way that most companies want me to respond, which is the channel that they opened up.
Sure. No, that I see that so many times is that, meet me where I am, like in my example before, don't make me walk to the customer service counter over by D7. Don't make me wait on the phone. Don't make me wait at the gate. I've got your app open right here. Communicate with me and let's, have an interaction. Yeah, absolutely. Well, if we shift away a little bit from contact centers and AI and all those kinds of things, one of the other things I wanted to ask you about, I noticed on your lapel there, you have a pin. Tell me a little bit about some of the things you have going on in your personal life right now.
Well, I've been in the contact center for my entire life, and I've recently. My wife says I should not use the word retired because that's not true, but I've technically not working for a corporation anymore. I still do a podcast and I still do some writing, but my passion is with a nonprofit called Keisha Warrior Princess. Our lovely daughter in 2017 was 30 years old and was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. And couldn't have been more surprised by the reality of that. And she fought valiantly for 4 years and was a warrior. She had always been my princess or my Pooh Bear, but Pooh Bear didn't work out in a good name for a nonprofit, so we used Princess. So Warrior Princess became her moniker, and she was on 14 different chemo regimens, and she fought so hard to live. And I wear a bracelet every day that says "Live like Keisha" because I want to remind myself that both before she was diagnosed, but after she was diagnosed, what a difference it made in how she lived. And she lived to live another day, to live another week, to live another month. Somewhere in the middle of that 4 years, we started talking about, she was living her life out loud a lot. And Matt, when she first got sick, I specifically said, we're not going to talk about how you got here. Because I knew to get to stage 4, there was a 1, a 2, and a 3 that she missed, that doctors missed. But as we progressed, we began to talk about, she was living her life out loud. She was on Facebook and she was doing things with other mentorships and those kind of things. And I said, would you be okay if I started a nonprofit in your name and tell your story? And she said, no, Dad, that would be great. She goes, I want you to tell my story as much as possible because I don't want any other woman to go through what I've gone through, and I don't want any other parent to go through what you've gone through. So she ended up, cancer took her life in 2013 was when she was diagnosed. 2017 is when it took her life. And then in 2019, we started a nonprofit called Keisha Warrior. It primarily is a focus on two things, and on women 25 to 45. Women in that segment think that breast cancer is for old women. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the statistics, it does happen to 50 and 60-year-old women, but 8 to 11% happen before 45. And we're seeing a whole lot more of the breast cancer in women 20, 25, 28, 30 years old. And the two things that they can do to combat that is, one is to do a self-exam, to do their own self-exam every month. And what they're doing is they're looking for nuances. So, that wasn't there before. If you go to our website at warriorprincess.org, under resources, it tells you how to do your own breast exam. We also have a card that we give out. You can go to the website and ask for one of these, and we'll mail it to you. On the front, it gives you the icons of the different steps, and on the back, it tells you how. It hangs on your shower head like that, and it's just a reminder to the woman. I believe I gave you one for your daughter and your wife, right?
Right, I did.
So
you know what I remember from that is that at that time period, and I'm just following that journey on Facebook as well, was that campaign of Ask Her. And like men, like, go ask the ladies in your life. You know, don't be shy about that conversation. Go ask them, like, say, hey, when was the last time you saw your gynecologist? When was the last time you had a mammogram? You know, and don't be afraid to have that, because those are conversations that even whenever I did that, and my daughter was like, yeah, it's been 2 or 3 years. I'm like, well, let's go ahead and just reminding my daughter, like, you call the number on your insurance card, you figure out who your doctor is and stuff, just like, go ask the ladies in your life, don't be afraid to have a conversation. And that impacted me directly. I did. And I went to the ladies in my life, and I was like, all right, let's go get this done. You named
the second thing. The first thing is the self-exam. And then the second thing is to go to your healthcare provider or a gynecologist and have them do a clinical exam once a year, because they're looking for things that you're not looking for.
Right.
But, we probably don't have time today, but I can tell you stories of women who have gone in and said, I found something, and the doctor said, well, you're too young for breast cancer. I'm sure it's nothing. And in reality, it was something. And she ended up having surgery, and she's now gotten married and has children. And what we're hoping with our nonprofit is that you find it in stage 1. If you find it in stage 1, you've got like a 95% chance of survival. So,
wow.
But it drops off to like 60% in stage 2. It drops off to like 40 or 35% in stage 3. And it drops off to like less than 20% in stage 4. And so finding it early, and that can be a year, it can be 6 months. You just need to find it early. And if you find it early, it's one of the most survivable cancers that a woman can have is breast cancer. But it's got to be found early, because it's 1 in 8 women that have breast cancer in their lifetime. 1 in 8. That's put 100,000 people in a stadium, and that's a lot of people.
Absolutely.
With breast cancer.
Yeah.
So I wrote a book. I started out writing a book, Matt, that was about my kids. I started out writing a memoir with the idea that I was going to write about what I learned from my kids. I've got a 39. I realize it's hard to believe as young as I look, but I've got a 39-year-old son and 3 beautiful grandchildren and a great daughter-in-law. But and there's some stories in here about my son, but it morphed into being about her and about what I had learned from her, both before she had cancer. Because looking back, looking back on her life, when you look back, you see that her strength was being prepared for what was coming. And then during the 4 years, I've never experienced a stronger woman. She would throw up for 15 minutes straight and sit up and go, well, that was better on the outside than it was on the inside.
Wow.
Like she was just a warrior. She was determined. So I wrote the book called On the Blue. In the book, the last chapter tells about why it's called On the Blue. And we don't have time for that story. It's a really long story, but it's a story about what it was like to be a dad and what it was like to live with somebody who was such a warrior, and what I learned from her. I call them Keisha-isms. Her name was Keisha Michelle Furniss, and I call them Keisha-isms, and they're listed in the book of things that I learned from her at the end of every chapter. So that's where my passion is today. I miss her every day. There was a time yesterday that just grief was palatable. And it's been almost 10 years now. Well, it's been 10 years since she was diagnosed, but it's been almost 10 years since she died from it. But I tell the story and I talk about her, and I want you to talk about her to your kid, your wife, and your family. And I want you to ask the women in your life. And if you're a woman, I want you to go out and do it. And then I want you to find nothing. We're probably the only nonprofit in America that wants you to do what we ask you to do so that you find nothing wrong.
Absolutely. The best experience you can have with cancer is to not having.
Not having. So we can bring that back to customer experience.
Exactly.
The best patient experience you could have is to do the checks, go to the gynecologist, and every year you find out, hey, I don't have anything. That's great.
Absolutely. Wow, what a fantastic way to end today. We're going to put the website up here and visit his website. Check out On the Blue. Check out the Contact Center Show podcast as well. And Bob, it's just what a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure to be with you also. And I remember some of those parties and some of those events we had at eTalk back in the day.
Absolutely.
And we probably shouldn't tell any stories about any of those.
Absolutely. That's right. That's right. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. All right.